Alright, afternoon everyone. We'll start in a few minutes. Just waiting on anyone extra who needs to come in. Anyone who isn't on My Learning or whatnot, please make sure you share the YouTube channel link. That way people can access the lectures via the YouTube. And eventually we may make some organization, or we'll organize for lecture slides to become publicly available. But until then, we'll be doing lectures via YouTube. And hopefully anyone should be able to access it despite their registration status. Alright, so good afternoon everyone. Hopefully you guys had a good summer break and whatnot. And everything is going smooth for you guys regarding the COVID situation, and everything is fine at home. And that hopefully this semester everything was smooth with our online teaching and exams and so forth. So there would be like less trouble regards like how we had it in face-to-face classes. But typically, because of our situation, all our classes are going to be held via YouTube for this course, and all our assessments and whatnot will be held via My Learning. So hopefully within the next 2 weeks, everyone sorts out their registration issues and so forth, and they will have access to My Learning. If they don't have access to My Learning at this point in time, please do email me and let me know, or email Dr. Fazal Muddin, the head of department, who is also the lecturer in charge for this course. Alright, so today's lecture is just going to be an introduction to what you can expect over the next 13 weeks regarding this course. So, one thing to note before I start here with my introduction lecture is that if you have any questions, please ensure that you can interrupt anytime by typing in the live chat to ask any questions related to the course, or when we have a question and answer session, please make sure that you do answer questions accordingly and so forth. You can ask questions, your colleagues can answer questions in the chat and so forth. And basically, once I finish discussing the slide, if there are any relevant questions, I will answer them in the chat and whatnot before I proceed. So this course in particular is going to focus on two aspects of what you're going to encounter throughout the entire electrical and computer degree. We'll be focusing on the signals aspect, and you'll also be focusing on the systems aspect. And we'll be watching how signals interact with systems and how they combine together and produce from an input signal to an output signal, and how we achieve this output signal accordingly. So, in particular, what we're going to be looking at are things like how do we use these signals and how do we transform them from one domain to another domain, and how we observe how certain systems process these signals to achieve a desired output signal in particular. So, what are signals? And basically, signals can be anything that you deal with in everyday life. Like, for instance, my voice that I'm using to communicate with you is a signal, and that's referred to as an audio signal. The audio signal that has been transmitted and processed from my end to your receiving end is what we refer to as how the signal is processed via a system, and how it takes an input signal, being my voice, to produce the output signal that is being received on your end. And our example here on the slide, let's consider a phone call to your friend, and let's just see some of the simple operations that actually happen, that when you actually make this phone call, how do they actually hear your voice on the receiving end? So your voice is detected by the microphone on the phone, and the microphone basically acts as a transducer that converts the analog audio signal of your voice into an electrical digital signal that is detected within the phone itself. Even though the voice is detected by the microphone, for it to be heard on the receiving end and for it to be transmitted as well, it also needs to be amplified and processed to remove any background noise or any disturbances to get this clear, crisp voice that you intend to hear on the receiving end. Also, after it does all this amplification and processing, it then needs to be coded or compressed for transmission. And for anyone who actually deals with communication systems, you will know that the less information you have, meaning if you can take a huge bit of information and you could compress it down to a very tiny bit of information, this actually saves on the amount of data you can actually transfer from one end to another end. After it is compressed, it is then transmitted at a high frequency, because your voice is at somewhere around of 20 Hz to 20 kHz. But when it's actually transmitted, when you actually observe on your phones, this is on the realm of megahertz. So it's like something like 800 to 900 megahertz, or in the LTE band, it may be something around like 1800 to 1900 megahertz, somewhere around there. And your phone transmits this to a cell tower via radio, and then that radio tower is responsible for relaying that transmission to your friend's cell phone. Once it reaches your friend's cell phone, it is decoded or decompressed in order to get back the original content of the audio signal, and then the opposite happens with regards to the processors, for it to be sent to the phone speaker in order for them to hear you. And if your friend talks, the same list of processes also happen as well, and so forth. And of course, there are many other operations that we can also consider, but this is basically the simplified version of it. And answering your question, yes, these videos will be available for review afterwards. They are being live recorded as we keep going on and so forth. The YouTube server is actually handling all the recording and so forth, so even after we finish a lecture, it will be immediately available within like 15 to 20 minutes for anyone to watch. So, just like I was saying, your voice can be considered as an input to your phone, and the voice that your friend hears on the receiving end is also an output from your friend phone. And these signals, what we refer to as inputs and outputs, is actually what we're going to be looking at with respect to how do we process and obtain desired signals. So, in particular, your input signal will be going into a system. And this system is responsible for amplification, processing, any cleaning up of the signal and so forth. And then it produces a desired output signal. So let's go with an example here. The 2020 Bugatti Chiron, which is probably one of the most expensive cars in the world, with a price list of somewhere like $3 million US. Yes, I know I'm missing a zero there. I'll fix it on the slides later on. And inside this vehicle itself, let's consider what sort of signals and systems actually exist in here, because a car is basically a sophisticated piece of machinery, and there's a lot of signals that it needs to process accordingly. So, any car in particular is a mixture of these 5 categories here, being electrical, mechanical, chemical, biological, and electromechanical. The electrical signals in particular could be the ignition system, the ECU, the starter, the alternator, your lights, anything that basically that's powered off the battery. The mechanical system can be the suspension that is responsible for keeping the smoothness of the ride. Your chemical system will be the fuel and combustion systems, which is responsible for the ignition of the fuel within the engine chamber. The biological will be the driver, which is you. And an electromechanical system will be your anti-braking system or your ABS system. And each one of these systems has its own sets of input and output signals accordingly. And in particular, if you're wondering like what would airbags fall under, airbags actually falls under the electromechanical system, because it relies on when you brake hard, it needs to detect that hard force, which is basically a mechanical force, and it needs to transmit this mechanical force electrically towards the airbag system or for the airbags to deploy. And also, after the electrical signal is transmitted, for the airbags to deploy, it also relies on the mechanical signal system for the airbags actually to inflate and to stop you before you slam into the dashboard itself. If we just elaborate a little bit on the suspension system of a car, the systems of the components would be like basically the tires, the car bodies, the wheels, the shock absorbers referred to as struts, the springs, probably your rotors as well, and so forth. And you may have encountered some of this in ECNG 1016 last year. If you did that course accordingly, hopefully you did. And the signals that will be associated with the suspension system will be the position, the velocity, and acceleration of these components. So let's say in particular, for position would be the car body. It does your car body tilt forward or backwards accordingly when you brake. The velocity will be associated with the tires or the wheels themselves, and also the acceleration will be associated with those two. And let's say in particular your shock absorbers and springs will also depend on position and velocity and acceleration as well, because the position of the shocks will give you the indicator of how much the shocks can compress and expand, and the rate of compression, expansion will determine on the velocity at which it compresses and expands, and the acceleration for how fast it will compress and expand. And in particular, an example of signals is that you can see this in everyday systems and everyday life that we have seen. Electrical, chemical, mechanical, biological, optical, financial, and so forth. But what we're going to be focused on here for this course only is going to be electrical signals only. We will not be focusing on any other types of signals. So, for our purpose for this course, all our signals and all our systems were related to electrical signals and electrical systems only. We will not be looking at any other type of signals or systems accordingly. So welcome back to your first semester of year 2 at this point in time. And before we go on to tomorrow's class, make sure you download and read the course outline that may be located on My Learning. I understand that some of you may not have access to My Learning, and My Learning itself is currently loaded, so it might take some time for it to actually load on your end, because I've encountered that problem as well today. If anyone has the course outline, please feel free to share it by any other means, via email, via WhatsApp, and so forth to your colleagues. That way they can actually get these things accordingly. Similar with the lecture slides. If you can't get onto My Learning, but someone else has gotten one and they gotten the slides and so forth, share them accordingly. Perfectly fine. They are public and they are available for use for everyone who wants to participate in this course. I will also see on my end if I can figure out how I could host these slides somehow and link them on the video later on that it's being recorded here. That way you guys can actually publicly access them as well. So this course is basically going to be focusing on providing a base knowledge of signals and systems that is going to carry you across onto your future courses throughout the entire degree. In particular, this course will serve you a lot of basic information regarding communication systems and control systems, which will be next semester if you happen to pass this course, because those courses rely on this course as a prerequisite. And at this point in time, I'm heavily stressing that you do not want to fail this course. You really want to make sure that you pass this course, because this course serves as a bottleneck towards a lot of courses that you're going to be doing next semester. So please ensure that you pay attention to all the lectures, ask any questions that you have, do not stay silent, make sure you ask your questions. Even if you don't ask them publicly, you can always email me and ask your questions afterwards. Even if you're reviewing your stuff, you can leave a public comment, you can email me, you can communicate me, ask your questions. If you really do not understand something, I will respond to you and I will help you as best as I can. So, as I pointed out, for control systems, power systems, communication systems, and signal processing, this course is the precursor for all of these. And all the information that you learn from this course carries over into these courses accordingly next semester. So to give you an idea of some of the topics that we'll be looking at that actually carries over into these other courses, let's focus on the controls course first. So the controls course here, as we can see, the topics of block diagrams, board diagrams, and stability, which was being taught in this course, will carry over to the controls course. But power courses, and this actually holds true for your year 3 power courses for anyone who is desirous of doing the power option, we'll be watching transient analysis, step response, and harmonic analysis in particular, which serves as the basis of the topics in this course that will carry over to your power courses as well. For people who are interested in the computer option, sampling and discrete time systems, this is what we'll be learning in this course as well, that will carry over to your computer courses. Electronics, we'll be learning filters and feedback amplifiers, and this will actually go hand in hand with your electronics 2 course this semester. And for the communications courses next semester and in year 3, you'll be focusing on modulation, frequency response, and signal processing accordingly, which is also taught in this course. So this course basically gives you all the basic information that you need for your future courses throughout the entire degree. So these are basically the learning outcomes of the courses and so forth, but basically what this says is that all the topics that we are being examined on or exposed on in this course are listed here in the learning outcomes. So expect these topics to come in some form or fashion on your midterm or on your final exam. The evaluation for this course is that you will have one end of semester exam, which is going to be 80% of the total grade. Please ignore the 3-hour duration exam. We are still determining how long this exam is going to be, because we understand that the exam is going to be conducted online, and we are still waiting the decision from the Board of Undergraduate Studies regarding how long the actual exam is going to be, as well as the format of the exam. Is it going to be an open book exam, or do you conduct it online, and so forth. The format of the exam, on the other hand, is going to be 5 questions, each with 20 marks, and in total, this is going to be 100 marks. You must attempt all 5 questions. Your in-course exam, so far, I can tell you that the duration is going to be 75 minutes for it. And even though it says closed book here, of course, that's not going to happen for this year, and this year only because of a situation. The exam is going to be open book. And the exam will be designed accordingly for you guys to complete in the 75 minutes with a leeway time for you guys to submit and so forth. I will also give you further details as to how this in-course exam is going to be structured, and if the time changes accordingly. If the time goes up, the time won't go down, it will go up most likely, and as well as how the actual format will be regarding if it's going to be an online exam, if it's going to be like you just download the paper and you attempt it, and you write down your answers on paper and then you take photographs and you upload it back. You will get very clear instructions as to how this midterm is going to be conducted this year. And there will also be 5 problem sets that we'll be doing in our tutorial sessions, and a series of in-class questions which are going to be very important in preparing you for your midterms and your final exams in particular. The in-course exam is going to be weighted 20% of your final mark. So in noting, I'm Mr. Anil Maharaj. I'll be teaching this course this semester, and I'll be doing all your YouTube live sessions accordingly on this channel. And our class times is going to be Mondays from 4 to 5 p.m. and Tuesdays 1 to 3 p.m. And if we're doing tutorial sessions, this will mix in our Tuesday sessions, and it may go on to 1 to 4 p.m. Most of the times, we don't ever go straight to 4 p.m. For the most, we might go straight to 3 p.m., but that extra hour is carded in there in case of anything that happens accordingly. If you need any consultations or anything, you can email me. My email address is right here on the slides. You can also, after the video is recorded, you can leave public comments. I will reply on those public comments accordingly if you don't understand something or if you need some clarification on what was taught in the slides and so forth. And like I said earlier, if you have any questions, make sure you do ask them. Don't hesitate to ask them accordingly, even during the lecture. Once I finish discussing the slide, and if there are any relevant questions, I will answer them accordingly, and then I'll move on to the next slide and so forth. Even if you're watching the videos and you see something and you need to ask immediately, you can leave a public comment. If you don't want to leave a public comment, email me directly, and I will answer you accordingly to clarify anything with the slide contents or any questions that you may have. Our lecture slides, our notes, our problem sets and so forth, well, they are currently available through My Learning. But because I understand that some people are having registration issues and so forth, I'll try to figure out some other way to publicly distribute them. In the meantime, if anyone else has access to My Learning, you are free to distribute these lecture slides and so forth accordingly through any communication medium that you desire, be it Facebook, WhatsApp, email, and so forth. You're free to distribute them as you see fit. Alright, so some friendly advice as to how you can actually get out of this course. Make sure you do attend all the classes, or if you can't attend the classes, make sure you watch your videos afterwards, because they are being live recorded and they are typically available 15 to 20 minutes after the live session is finished because of YouTube recording them in the background on the server. Feel free to interrupt and ask questions if you don't understand anything or you're unsure about something and you really need to ask. Don't stay silent. Make sure you ask your question. Like for instance, we have a question right now for when the tutorials will be posted. So in particular, the tutorials will be posted once we hit a certain slide. When we hit a certain lecture. So once we covered enough material for the tutorial actually will be posted accordingly as well. And I'll also indicate during the lectures, at the end of a lecture, if a tutorial actually is going to be posted. The tutorials in this case may be problem sets and so forth. So yes, please do not stay silent. Ask questions. Make sure you do ask questions if you do not understand something. Don't stay silent at all. Make sure you ask stuff. Even after class, if you want to ask any questions, like I said, post your questions in the comment section below. Or you can email me if you don't want any questions to be public, and I will answer them accordingly to you. Make sure you also do the problem sets and the in-class questions, because these actually serve as the basis for actually how you're going to attempt your midterm and your final exam questions and so forth. Most importantly, which I am ashamed to say that some people don't actually do, is that you actually have to practice for this course. You cannot just do one question and expect, okay, this is what's going to be for all situations. No, you actually need to practice for this course. Practice many questions as possible as you can. Do past papers, do the problem set questions, find any other types of questions that you may want to ask or you want to actually attempt and so forth. And you can actually attempt the questions. You can send me photos of your attempts. I can actually review them for you, and I can tell you where it's correct, if you went wrong at a certain place, what to look for, and so forth. Even in the tutorial and problem set questions and sessions, we will be watching in particular as to how you will be approaching questions strategically and how you actually can watch for certain indicators in the questions or while you're attempting the question to know if you're on the right track. And the most obvious point is do your best to pass the exams. It's going to get more than 50% of the marks regarding the exams. So the insight for the pass-fail rate of this course, which is a current question in the comments, is that last year, because when the course ran offline, the pass rate actually was pretty high. No, sorry, not last year. During the summer offering of this course last semester, because it ran online, the pass rate was pretty high because the final exam was open book and students had 48 hours to complete the exam, basically where the exam was posted online on My Learning. And they were able to download a copy of the exam and attempt the questions and just took photos of their attempts and upload that attempt accordingly. So the pass rate was pretty high for the summer offering of this course. Last year, the pass rate was around 50 to 60%, and in particular, when we analyzed if people are accessing the content of the course, that wasn't the case, and the highest activity was after the exam. Surprisingly, where people were actually accessing the content of the course to see if they did the questions correctly. So please do not do this. Make sure you do access the content of the course beforehand and practice. Just practice a lot of questions accordingly. But like I said earlier on in this lecture, the course this year, because of our COVID situation, is going to be fully online, and the midterm and the final exam is obviously going to be fully online as well. So most likely it's going to be open book, but we're still waiting to see what is actually going to be our time limits accordingly for attempting the exams, because we're waiting on the Board of Undergraduate Studies to give us a decision regarding what time limits they'll put on these exams accordingly. Alright, so are there any other questions or concerns that you need to ask regarding this course? Past papers for this course will be available accordingly on the My Learning website, but they're also publicly available through the Alma Jorman library. I will type in the name for it here in the chat. I'll also see if I can find a URL to post accordingly as well. That's a direct URL in the chat here for you guys to actually get straight to the past papers themselves. I'm not too sure how further back the past papers are on the library website, but legally I cannot distribute the past papers to you. They can only be straight on the library website or whatever has been publicly posted by the library. I can, however, during our tutorial sessions, go to more recent past papers and pull questions accordingly and display them on screen for you guys to actually see them and how we can attempt them. That is the only workaround I can figure out at this point in time for more recent questions. I know there's a recommended text from the course outline, and it should be available online somewhere, if legally through purchasing from Amazon, if you really want to. But there are other methods in which you can probably get this textbook as well, which I cannot really disclose on at this point in time. But even if you do really want to use the recommended text, I can advise you strongly that all the course content that you will need for the exams and so forth will be in all the lecture slides and all the material covered within this course. The recommended text is just for later on. And even so, on the MyLearner website, there are also additional videos like for how people walk through certain problems, how you attempt certain problems. They go step by step showing you how they solve certain problems and so forth, which is actually very helpful in regards to additional resources of this course. And it's totally free. I do recommend that when you hit certain topics and if you're having problems, you do watch these videos, and I will emphasize when we reach these topics which links in particular on MyLearning that you may want to watch that actually helps you with these problems. Are there any further questions? Alright, I don't think there will be any further questions at this point in time, so our lecture for today is finished. If anyone has any further questions, feel free to email me or leave your public comments on the video that is going to be automatically uploaded once the stream is stopped. And tomorrow I will see you guys at 1 p.m. for our first actual lecture of this course. So take care, be safe, and I'll see you guys tomorrow at 1 p.m.